welcome to You Were There, Karen Beth. Thank you for sharing a World War II daughter's experience during the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Plélo in Brittany, France during World War II. I look forward to sharing my remarkable experience of arriving in Plélo, France just days before the city was celebrating its liberation by Patton's 3rd Army, 15th Cavalry Reconnaissance Group, Troop B, during World War II. The synergy and providence of my unplanned arrival just days before the celebration was all the more unbelievable as I was there to deliver my father's military documents, which recorded the events of the liberation in detail. My original outline for the podcast was to present the amazing events that occurred when Lieutenant Robert Hamsley deviated from his orders in answer to the French resistance plea and led his 5 tanks and 20 men into battle to liberate Plélo on August 7, 1944. I also intended to share in detail the amazing liberation celebration honoring the American liberators who Pléiadians remember and revere to this day. However, my podcast began writing itself. It grew like Topsy. Before I knew it, I began reflecting on how World War II had impacted my life. I began making connections with the war from my early childhood in England. I realized that as a baby boomer, born right after the war, it had had a great influence on my life. I had a unique perspective and wanted to share not only the impact the war had on soldiers like my dad, Delbert Downing, and the people of Plélo, but also the impact the war had on their families and descendants. Please join me in sharing our oral traditions and the importance of remembering and honoring the sacrifices the great generation made to preserve democracy in World War II. Please choose your adventures from the following episodes. For my providential journey to Plélo, France, choose episodes 1 through 10. Join me and my partner, Bert Spurl, as we launch into a 6-week tour of England and Europe. With no plan to attend Plélo, the difficulties of the trip seemed to rule out a last-minute visit. But while sailing in England, I got in touch with the effect that World War II had on me and my family. I began my schooling in England and remembered the bombed-out ruins which were still evident. While traveling throughout Europe, vestiges of World War II made it a constant traveling companion. For historical details of Plélo's World War II liberation, go to episodes 11 to 15. Take a deep dive into the liberation of Plélo by Patton's 3rd Army, 15th Cavalry Reconnaissance Troop B, as Lieutenant Robert Hamsley leads 5 tanks to go into battle to free Plélo. Learn in detail how Colonel Hamsley went against orders to save Plélo, so official military documentation was never made. My father's and Colonel Hamsley's documents shed new light on the details of that celebrated day and what was to follow. See how the people of Plélo spent years searching for Hamsley until they found him and celebrated the heroism of he and his men. For details of Plélo's 80th anniversary liberation celebration, go to episodes 16 through 26. Join Bert and me as we are warmly welcomed by the city of Plélo to join them in 3 days of non-stop festivities celebrating Plélo's 80th anniversary liberation. See photos and videos of 130 participants wearing 1940s military uniforms, 50 1940s U.S. military tents, 60 U.S. military vehicles, including armored cars and tanks. 7,000 people visited the camp each day, enjoy somber ceremonies, joyful dances and feasts and convoys as the city of Plélo celebrated and honored the American liberators. For reflections on the impact of World War II, go to episodes 27 through 30. See how the people of Plélo shared their oral traditions and family history experienced during World War II. Learn how important it is not only for Europeans to remember the sacrifices made by Americans and their allies, but it is imperative that Americans continue to join the world in defense of democracy. As descendants of World War II, we continue to live in freedom due to our ancestors' sacrifices. Every generation owes it to our ancestors to continue the fight to preserve democracy. To understand why I created this presentation, go to episode 31. Learn how I was so deeply moved by all that I experienced in Plélo that I had to tell their story. Through encouragement by family, friends, and neighbors, I created my first podcast documentary to share my sense of obligation and to let Americans know how highly regarded and revered Americans are. because our ancestors fought to liberate Plélo in World War II on August 7th, 1944.